Good morning. Welcome to 20 for 2020. And this is a new series that I've started where I'm going to interview 20 financial and attorneys and accountant advisors who will help you achieve your goals through their various professional practices. I'm going to ask them 20 questions, interview 20 people, and hopefully get this done before the end of the year. And I'm Ella Newman. I'm a insurance advisor, trusted advisor with the Norton Advisory Group. I specialize in helping people with estate, business succession, retirement, and long-term care planning. And I'm going to tell you later about how we can do an insurance review for you, but that won't be until the end of our program. Today, I am honored to have Beth Tractenberg, partner who is in charge of the private client group at Steptoe and Johnson, with us as our special guest. And so welcome, Beth.
Thank you, Ella. Good morning.
Good morning. Have you come down from the excitement of having your son's wedding at your home recently?
Not quite. It was very exciting, and it ended up to be just a wonderful, personal, intimate event. So I guess maybe there's some silver linings to COVID, but
Great.
It was a wonderful event. Thank you for asking.
I know how special that was, and in these difficult times, I just had to point that out. Anyway, so today what we're going to do is I'm going to go over some questions. I've known Beth for many, many years, and she's an amazing professional who's an expert in her field. And I thought it would be helpful for you to get to know her and understand about her way she approaches her practice and the firm she's with, so that when you're looking to make a choice for yourself, you can think about Beth as one of your options. So we're going to get started with our 20 questions. I'm going to start with the primary focus of your practice, Beth. What would you say that is?
I would say the primary focus of our practice is estate planning, although we have a very varied and diverse full service practice. In fact, I like to refer to our practice group as being the law firm equivalent of a family office, because we are set up to help families with pretty much anything that comes up in their lives that require legal help. We have, of course, estate planning. We have income tax experts, actually an immigration practice, which is unusual for a firm of our size, real estate, litigation, fund formation, corporate law, and we use all the individuals in our practice to help our clients whenever they have a liquidity event or a business startup, or we hope they don't have litigation, but sometimes that does come up. So, but for me personally, I would say my primary focus is estate planning within the context of long-term relationships with families.
Great. So what led you to this career path?
Well, that's an interesting question. I was a psychology major in law school, and I had always thought I would be a lawyer. I started my career as a summer associate at Sullivan and Cromwell, and I was in the individual clients group there while the Johnson trial was going on, which is now many years ago. It was a very exciting opportunity for a law student to get to actually go to New York County Surrogates Court and see a trial involving a will contest, which does not happen often. And this involved J. Seward Johnson, who is one of the, I guess at that point, the top family members in Johnson & Johnson. And he had died, and his children claimed that he was unduly influenced by his wife. And so they brought a will contest, and I sat in the courtroom and I thought, this combines psychology and law and tax issues. This just has everything. So that's the area I want to go into. And I have been very happy that that's what I chose, because it really does combine all of those things.
That's fantastic. So how did you get to work at your current firm?
Well, I actually am friendly with the chairman of our firm, Phil West. We were associates together years ago at Sherman and Sterling. So when I was thinking about making a move, a mutual friend of ours put us together, and it's been a fantastic place for me and for my practice group.
That's fantastic. So, what would you say some of the highlights of your career as a whole have been?
I would say one of the real highlights of my career is that I have worked with one client family for almost 20 years now. And one of the family members has a very, very successful business, which was a privately held business. And he put me on his board, which was absolutely fantastic. I got to see business from the inside rather than just from the outside from a planning perspective. And it was fascinating. It was a company that had gone through a restructure and then became enormously successful. It was sold a couple of years ago, so no more board, but it was a great opportunity to learn a lot and to do something different, which also helped me a lot in my planning for him because I always knew what was going on.
That's fantastic. That is really interesting. So, what type of clients do you tend to work with mostly?
I tend to work mostly with clients who are entrepreneurial, not so much clients who come from a long line of money because there's really not as much to do with, for them. I do have some clients like that, but I have a lot of entrepreneurs both in real estate and actual manufacturing, some private equity fund managers. It's really a nice broad variety of clients. We have a special niche practice in the international areas. So we do a lot of cross-border work with
Mhm.
clients with family members outside the US, or maybe the clients are going to come to the US. So we do pre-immigration planning. We have some clients who have expatriated, but family members remain US citizens. So there's a lot of planning involving other countries and the United States.
Mhm. Well, that sounds very interesting. Amazing. So, what are some problems or issues that you've been able to specifically address for your clients?
Well, I try to help them avoid family fights, to put it bluntly. I encourage family meetings while the senior family members are still with us so that emotions are not running high, and clients are sometimes resistant to this. I have one family I've worked with for many years, and the senior generation had a just wonderful art collection. And so I said to the three siblings, who I've also worked with for a long time, we should really have a meeting and talk about what should be done with the art when your parents are not here. And since they're here, they're doing well. No one's upset. Everyone can be calm. And they kept saying for years, no, we don't need that, we're fine. And finally, I think probably just to make me stop nagging them, they agreed to have the meeting. And you know what, it turned out they had totally different views on what to do with the art, and it was really eye-opening for them. And in fact, just in this past July, the parents, who are still luckily with us, decided to sell all the art. And there was a
Oh,
sale at Sotheby's. It did extraordinarily well. And so the proceeds are going to go to the children. They actually went in and bought some of the smaller pieces that they really liked. Each child bought some pieces, so there was no fighting about, did you pay the right value? Did you get something more valuable than what I got?
mm,
And we avoided what could have been a tremendously difficult situation.
fascinating. That is really very interesting. Wow. Okay, so when you're working on an estate plan for a family, what goes into that process?
Well, I always meet, and if it's a married couple, with both the husband and wife, because I represent them jointly. So whatever plan we come up with has to work for both the husband and the wife. And before COVID, I always insisted on an in-person meeting before we even started working, because this area of the law is very personal and having the right chemistry and being comfortable with each other is critical. Now we've had to adjust, as everyone has had to, and we do video conferences, but that's always the starting point, is to really get to know each other and see each other, even if not in person, on the screen. And a big part of my practice is really helping people look at what they want for the future and plan so that they do save taxes, they do end up with their assets going where they want them to go, but they do not plan so that they part with every last penny and are left in an uncomfortable situation themselves. So I always emphasize how important it is that a lot of times I have clients who come in and they say, oh, we don't want to pay one penny of taxes. We'll put everything in trust. And I say, that's really not a good idea. How are you going to live? You don't ever want to be in a position of not being able to enjoy your lives as fully as you could have if you hadn't done this planning, or having to ask your children for money. So that's a big focus.
Mm-hmm.
Another focus is people are very concerned that they don't want their children to be trust fund babies. They want them to be productive members of society. So they want to create a structure that provides assets for their children, but not so much that the children don't get jobs or work for important charitable causes. So we often do very broad discretionary trusts, but with the senior generation doing what are called letters of wishes to advise the trustees about how they want the assets handled, the kinds of things they would like distributions made for, and the kinds of things they don't want distributions made for. And those letters can be revised over time.
That sounds like a brilliant way to do it. Really very thoughtful. How would you assist clients with funding assets into their trusts if you do set up trusts for them? Do you work on that?
I do. We often work very closely with accountants and financial advisors because it's very important to have a team, and insurance people too, Ella, of course.
Good.
We've been using a lot more revocable trusts now. In other words, living trusts as part of basic estate planning instead of just relying on wills. So that involves particularly a lot of work on the funding. And we do send covering email explaining the basics. And then we often do work directly with the client. Sometimes they want us to help do transfer documents, look through LLC operating agreements and make sure they're doing the transfers properly, advise them about how to transfer various accounts and real estate. So we help, but we'll do as much or as little as the clients want. Although it is very, very important when they set up these living trusts that to get the full benefit of doing the living trust, that they actually put the assets into the trust.
Right. I know that can be a big factor. So I'm glad to hear that that's your approach on that. So it sounds like you actively help execute their plans. Do you want to comment on that? Yes.
I think that's really important because for anyone who's read the cases that go to tax court and the rulings, most of the time, it's not that there was anything wrong with the plan that the lawyers did. The problem was with the implementation, and that the clients really didn't understand that they had to very strictly adhere to the formalities of the plan for the plan to work. So I am very much aware of that and work with the clients so that they understand that and so that I can advise along the way.
That's great. Now, when you work with a particular group or family or individual, do you provide formal updating, reviews, and maintenance programs?
Yes, we do periodically send out bulletins when there's a change in the law. We do tend to have ongoing relationships with clients. So they check in with me, I check in with them. So it's very much an ongoing relationship. Our practice is not so much about people just coming and getting basic documents done and then we don't see or hear from them for many years. It's much more hands-on interactive practice. I think largely because of the type of clients that we have. They do have issues coming up. They'll start businesses, or in one very unfortunate case that I've been working on lately. Some longtime clients who happen to be very good friends of mine found out because of COVID, their business really slowed down. They had an opportunity to look at things and they were very worried about their cash resources. They found out that someone who had worked for them for many years had been embezzling from them. And so
Oh my
we've
God.
been helping them with that and recovering funds. So as I said, it's really anything that comes up for the clients.
Right, that's so important, and that's an important but upsetting discovery to come
Yeah.
across. That happens. I remember experiencing that a couple of times when I was involved in private banking, where people discovered someone they trusted suddenly wasn't
Yeah.
so trustworthy. It's a very scary situation to be in.
Very hard to even comprehend that someone who worked for them for decades and was a personal friend had been stealing.
I've heard of those situations in
Yeah.
other cases too. So what is it like to work with you initially and in the long run? How would that,
Um,
be?
that's a pretty wide open
I
question.
guess.
Um, I really tend to become very close with a lot of the clients I work with, and they're almost like family. And I try to make planning as fun as I can. Nobody likes to think about what's going to happen when I die, and I really try to reassure clients that this is all just about planning and putting things in place the way they want them to be. And I really think one of the big aspects is we do have a really nice personal back and forth. And as odd as it may be, we do have a lot of fun a lot of the
That's
time.
good. That's great. That's the way you want it. Now, on a more mundane topic, how do you determine your fees and what do you include in your fees at your firm?
Well, that's also a very open-ended question. We generally bill by the hour, but we're
Mhm.
very open to alternative fee arrangements and working on a project doing, let's say, phase one, which is what I call the basic planning, which would be at this point primarily living trusts with wills that pour over anything that hasn't been transferred into the trust, and then living wills, healthcare proxies, power of attorney forms. So that would be phase one. And sometimes I will do that for a fixed fee. It really depends on the client and what's involved. And then phase two, which is generally more sophisticated lifetime gifting, we tend to work more on an hourly basis for that because that's harder to predict what's going to happen and the amount of work that's done. But we try very hard to keep clients happy with the fees, and it is all part of having the ongoing good relationship.
Right, that makes sense. Um, so, what are some of your experience in mitigating or dealing with estate taxes?
Well, that's the
Or-
heart of phase two anyway of
Right,
the plan,
right,
and
exactly.
some of that involved in phase one. um, that is an important part of it, and as we are nearing the year end, it's especially important because, as we're all very, very aware, we have a big election coming up, and depending on how that turns out, the tax law, particularly in the estate planning area, may change significantly. So while we right now have, for people domiciled in the United States or US,
Oh,
oops, sorry about that.
you're
That
back.
phone call
Okay.
coming in. An $11.58 million per person exemption amount. It's expected that if Joe Biden wins, that's going to go way down. So we're very busy helping clients to plan so that they can use the full amount of their exemptions if that's what they want to do. And we have ways of planning that involve allowing clients to have certain continuing access to what they transfer, but of course not total access, or it's not going to be protected from estate tax. So that's a big focus right now.
Understood. Right. That's good. A good response. Um, so I think you've already covered this, but it's what would you include in creating an estate plan, wills, trusts, life insurance? What constitutes the whole package?
Yeah, well, the basic package or phase one is generally pour over will, irrevocable trust, insurance trust, and living will, healthcare proxy, power of attorney.
Right, that makes sense. And you've mentioned already your thoughts about using revocable living trusts. So obviously, it sounds like that's a vehicle that you like to work with. You want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, when I first started working in this field, and up until pretty recently in the New York City area, we, when I say we, I mean, in general, most estate planners just used wills because probate was easy. It wasn't very expensive. It went quickly unless there was some kind of problem like a will contest.
Mhm.
Um, but over the last maybe 3 to 5 years, probate has gotten very, very difficult. I think the courts are understaffed. It's very time consuming. People in the family can really be left in the lurch because I'm working on an estate right now where there was a will contest, which
Mm.
we settled. But that delayed us for many months. And so we couldn't get letters testamentary, which allow the executor to deal with the assets of the estate. There's no way to make distributions. We did get preliminary letters so that the executor could pay bills and collect the assets, but it wasn't possible to make distributions. Unfortunately, I had created a revocable trust for that particular client and he hadn't funded it. So that was a very, very unfortunate lesson in what happens when you don't fund the trust, which
Mhm.
is something I really try to impress upon clients. You're just not
Right.
going to get the benefit of the trust if you don't spend the time and effort to fund it. And if he had done that, this would have gone much more smoothly.
That makes a lot of sense, and that's what we need attorneys to do for family. So beyond a lot of the trust and estate topics that we've just covered, are there other issues you also get to address with the families or the
Yeah.
clients?
Yeah, we do a lot of charitable work. We help them set up charitable entities, figure out the most efficient assets to use for gifting to charities, whether it's a direct gift or to a private foundation. We also set up public charities. And then people use donor advised funds a lot. So that's something we work on. Of course, we do estate administration. We also do prenuptial agreements, postnuptial agreements, not just as a little cottage industry, but for our clients and people who are going to become ongoing clients. So, as I said, it's a very varied practice. We have from time to time some litigation, like the will contest. We also represent trustees who are being sued or need help in other areas. So, um, I think we really act almost like, as I said, a family office, but almost sort of like an old fashioned general practitioner because we get a lot of issues from help, the chef is stealing from us, what do we do, to we're selling our business, help us plan, help us figure out what that involves and how we do that most effectively to get the best price.
That's great. That's really important. Um, so if somebody comes to you to get their estate plan done, how long will it take to complete an estate planning project?
That is a very good question, Ella, and that ties into so many things. When people come in and they're prepared and they've thought through the questions, or maybe they haven't thought through them before they come into the office or meet with me on video conference, but when they address the questions that I tell them that they have to be addressed and they come back and if they're efficient, we can get everything done in a month or two. It's where people get very busy in their own lives, which I certainly understand, but sometimes this can take years. And I do tell clients that one of my main functions is to nag them to get things done. In fact, before our call this morning, I just sent out a batch of emails to clients saying it is my goal to have my clients finish their estate planning before the end of the year. When do you want to speak? And I've actually said to clients along the way over the years, let me know if you want me to stop nagging you. I've never had a client say, please stop, this is annoying. They always say, thank you so much. No, you've got to keep after me because otherwise I won't do it.
Right.
But, the more efficient they are, the more efficient we are. And the less it's going to cost them too, which I try to tell them as a good incentive to be very efficient.
Right. Well, that's a terrific answer. That's really makes a lot of sense. Okay. Do you send your estate planning documents to the clients to review once you've completed them?
Well, sure. Once we've
Yeah.
done drafts, and we give them a choice whether they'd like us to send a summary to them or go over them with me, um, or just if they're comfortable with them as they are. I used to do summaries all of the time. I have very mixed feelings about those. Number one, it adds to the cost. Number two, and far more important, is I found that clients tend then only to read the summaries and don't read the documents. And it's really important that they read the documents. So
Right.
I don't just automatically send out summaries. But of course, if the client would like a summary, we're happy to do one.
Right. Well, that's a very good response because you can see it might be different for different clients and depending
Yeah.
on the situation. Who in your office is able to discuss your clients' issues in your absence?
Well, we have a team, and we have my colleague Jasmine Camperitas. We have a senior associate, George McCormick. We have other partners who are income tax partners but practice in the private client space. So we have quite a nice team at this point. We've been growing it, and I'm happy with how we're doing.
Uh-huh. Well, that sounds great. So, last but not least, we're actually up to question number 20.
Wow, that went fast.
What can you tell us about yourself that we cannot find out on the internet? Hmm.
Well, so many things. Sort of typical things. I love to travel, and I miss that a lot. My practice did have me traveling once or twice a month, just all kinds of really interesting places to go to conferences and visit clients. In the last couple of years, I've been to Japan, Colombia, Spain, Cyprus, Austria,
Wow.
Italy, my absolute favorite place. I actually had a trip planned. I was supposed to go to Italy from to Florence from London on March
Huh?
6th, and unfortunately, that had to be canceled. I
We
also
want to
like,
go to the same place. I have the
yeah,
same taste.
it's such a great place.
Yes. Hmm.
But one thing I'd really like to spend more time doing is becoming a better photographer. That's something I'm very, very interested in. And I
Okay.
like to cook and spend a lot of time on the beach. So another silver lining to COVID is I've been lucky enough to be on Fire Island since May.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Well, I must say thank you. That was an amazing opportunity to learn about you and your practice. And it's just been absolutely fantastic to learn. And hopefully, if people want to get in touch with you, what would you suggest is the best way they reach you? Is you want to just give your email or what
Yeah.
other?
They can reach me by email at Tractenberg, spelled Tract, no H, Tractenberg at steptoe.com.
Great.
And very happy to talk to people. We often tell people to feel free to use us as a resource if they have questions, because I do feel like this is all a collaborative effort. And if I give advice to someone, they may decide to retain us. Even if they don't, that's fine. They may have friends who they may refer to us. So very happy to help. And I mean, within limits, of course.
Of
But
course.
um,
Hmm.
so
Yes.
that's how to reach me.
Understood. That's terrific. And I'm sure they can go to the website for your firm as well.
Yes.
So I want to thank our audience for attending our first 20 for 20 in 2020. And
Well,
as I
thank
mentioned,
you, Ella,
thank
for
you, Beth.
inviting me to be your inaugural interview.
Thank
I'm
you.
honored, and this was a lot of fun.
Great. Well, as I mentioned in the beginning, I just want to remind the people listening that their current insurance holdings should be reviewed by a professional because changes have taken place in the economy, in the insurance industry, and they need to have these items reviewed every 3 or 4 years. And they can contact me at ella@nortonadvisorygroup.com to arrange for an appointment, and we're happy to do a complimentary review. And looking forward to doing more sessions, and I'll be announcing soon the next 20 for 20 in 2020. In the meantime, we'll see most people on LinkedIn, and of course, go to our websites. And thank you again, Beth. This was fantastic, and
Thank you, Ella.
appreciate your doing this with me.